So, like, name one character on Rick and Morty who's got a stable family, a hobby they actually enjoy, a published book, and this is the important part, actually likes their life. I think Jerry Smith might be the smartest character on Rick and Morty. And okay, I know how that sounds. I do. But just hear me out. Because the more I dug into this, the more I realized the show's been telling us this the entire time, for seasons. And we were all too busy laughing at the guy to notice the obvious staff. Look, I'm not delusional. I've seen the show. Jerry is insecure, he's simple, he lost his job, he got divorced by a woman who chose her alcoholic genius father over him, and he gets openly humiliated by basically every member of his own family on like a rotating schedule. He is, by every visible metric, a loser. The show wants you to think he's the dumbest person in any room he walks into. Rick says it, Beth implies it. Even Morty dunks on this man. So why does he keep winning? Because that's the thing, right? Nobody stops to actually think about it. And once you start tracking Jerry's outcomes across 8 seasons, something genuinely weird starts to happen. And honestly, I think the show just keeps telling you the answer, and we keep missing it. Jerry Smith has a superpower, and the show literally tells you what it is. He weaponizes pity. People hire him out of pity. They give him consolation out of pity. They take his side in arguments because he looks so pathetic that you feel bad for the guy. And before you know it, he's gotten exactly what he wanted without ever actually asking for it. It's like, okay, you know that one friend who's terrible at planning but somehow always ends up at the best parties because people feel obligated to invite them? That's Jerry, except it's scaled up to like a multiverse-level survival strategy. And I don't think anyone's really sat with how wild that is. And I know what you're thinking. That's not intelligence. That's just being pathetic. And yeah, sure, on the surface. But think about this. Rick Sanchez, the smartest being in the entire multiverse, cannot get a single person to genuinely like him. He's got infinite IQ and zero ability to make people want to help him. And Jerry just walks into a room, does nothing, and people fall over themselves to assist. That's not stupidity. That is a form of social intelligence that Rick, for all his portal guns and dimension hopping, fundamentally cannot replicate. And that's what gets me. His book is literally called... We laughed at that title. The show framed it as a joke, but it works every single time. That's not a punchline. No, that's a thesis statement. And nobody caught it because it came out of Jerry's mouth. And so he can manipulate people emotionally. Big deal, right? Lots of characters do that. But Jerry does something else that I think is way more impressive. And it's the thing that just made me take this whole argument seriously in the first place. Unkillable. Jerry Smith has survived every single thing that Rick Sanchez has thrown at the universe. Every single thing. And I need you to just sit with that for a second. Because Rick almost dies twice a season. And this man has access to technology that bends reality. Jerry's got a weed whacker and good intentions. And he just keeps going. Rick potion number 9. The entire Earth gets Cronenberged. Rick's solution? Just abandon the dimension. Leave. Find a new Earth where things worked out and slot right in. And Jerry stays. And not only does he survive a literal monster apocalypse, but by the time we see him again in Solarix, he's become, and this is the show's word, not mine, self-actualized. Of all things. The supposedly dumbest character on the show gets abandoned in an apocalypse and achieves psychological enlightenment. Meanwhile, the smartest character in the multiverse has been running from his problems across infinite dimensions for decades and still can't sit alone with his own thoughts without reaching for a flask. And I don't know what else you need to hear after that, honestly. And then there's the whirly-durly conspiracy. Jerry gets convinced to murder Rick.
You're asking me to lure Rick to his death?
I'm only asking you to go on a ride with Rick, get off the ride without Rick, and go home to your family.
Like a suicide mission by any rational measure. And somehow, the result of that episode is that Rick and Jerry become more emotionally open with each other. Jerry turned an, wait, you're hearing this right. Jerry turned an assassination attempt into a bonding experience. Like, I didn't make that up. That is what happens in the episode. Crap. Yeah, episode. Maybe that's all just dumb luck. Maybe Jerry's just a cockroach, right? Survives everything because he's too stupid to know he should be dead. Fair argument. Except the multiverse has something to say about that. So in the Rick and Morty comics, there's a version of Jerry from dimension J19 Zeta 7, who is a billionaire genius. Not a gag, not a bit. An actual universe-conquering, what was the exact phrase? Literal definition of success version of Jerry Smith. And here's where it gets interesting, because that dimension, it's the same dimension that produces Doofus Rick, the dumb Rick, the one who eats poop. You remember this one, right? I hope you do. It's not a smart people dimension or a dumb people dimension. It's an opposite dimension. Whatever you are in our reality, you're just the reverse there. Which means our Jerry being dumb isn't a ceiling, it's a configuration. And the raw potential for genius level intelligence is sitting right there. It's just pointing in a completely different direction. And I think, honestly, it's pointing towards something the show values way more than IQ. And nobody really talks about that. All right, let's run the numbers. Jerry gets divorced from Beth. Beth comes back, not because Jerry did something grand or clever, she just comes back to him. And then, by season 6, Jerry is in a throuple with Beth and Space Beth. The man went from divorced to dating 2 versions of his wife. And like, if that happened to anyone else on this show, we'd call it a power move. But because it's Jerry, we all just kinda shrug. And he becomes friends with Rick, his actual nemesis. Final dismithation. Season 6, episode 5. Rick and Jerry have a genuine friendship moment, and it's Rick who bridges the gap, not Jerry. The smartest being in the multiverse decided Jerry was worth befriending, and of course that means something. That's gotta sting, right? Rick chose Jerry. And look, the man has hobbies. Beekeeping.
I've been getting into beekeeping lately.
He published a book. He was briefly, what was it? A galactic orb ship superhero called Flamingo Dad? Which, yeah, sure, but he has stuff. He has a life outside of trauma. Name another character on this show who can say that. Seriously, like, I'll wait. And Dan Harmon, the creator, looked at the scene where Rick tries to kill himself at the end of autoerotic assimilation, while Jerry happily finds his weed whacker in the garage, and said, quote, "Does Jerry have it better off? I think so." The guy who wrote these characters is telling you Jerry wins that comparison. And when you actually think about it, if Rick's intelligence leads to suicidal depression, and Jerry's stupidity leads to contentment and a family that keeps choosing him despite everything, then we've been measuring intelligence wrong this entire time. And I think the show has been trying to tell us that from literally the pilot, and we just weren't listening. And that's so much to process. Rick can build anything, solve anything, go anywhere, and he's the most miserable character in the show. Because intelligence without emotional connection is just fancy loneliness. It's a particle accelerator with nobody to show it to. That's what it comes down to. And Jerry can't build anything, can't solve anything, goes nowhere voluntarily. And he's the only character who consistently, stubbornly, almost annoyingly prioritizes the one thing that actually makes a person's life work. Other people, his family, his relationships. The messy, embarrassing, not very impressive act of just being there. It just doesn't matter how smart you are if you're alone. That's all this show is saying. And I think that's honestly kind of heartbreaking when you think about it. 8 seasons, 81 episodes, and the dumbest character on the show is the only one who figured out what matters. Maybe we've been laughing at the wrong guy this whole time. So yeah, if you've got a theory on this, if you notice something in the later seasons that the rest of us missed, just drop it in the comments. Because I genuinely think there's more here. And honestly, I think there's like way more to Jerry than even this video covers. And I kinda want someone to prove me wrong at this point. Morty fiction. I'll catch you on the next one.